shining clouds were there, birds were chirping, but
not on you.
Yeah, not on me. It's like rain and like darkness. And so like I really struggled to find an answer as to why I felt this way. Was it a health issue? It really felt like a health scare because like I cannot be tired for no reason. And again, linking the whole thing to my dad again, like at first it was like my mom says something about herself, I'm worried. My dad says something about himself, I'm worried. And now it's circled back to me. It's like I'm not feeling okay for no reason. Is there something wrong with me now? Yeah, do I have something that I'm not aware of at this moment? Yeah, so it was a real health scare. I went for a health checkup and everything. Everything was okay. But yeah, so that was my answer. Like everything was okay. The report card was good and everything. But yeah, it was just really like a slow recovery from there. Yeah.
Zheng Kai, what about in your journey? Like,
Yeah.
did it get better over time?
Yeah, I mean, it did. It was a difficult process, right? Like I was saying, there was all the self-harm, the suicidal ideation. But I think as I was reflecting back, the fact that I cut myself on the arm in a way that was still somewhat visible to people meant that perhaps internally I wanted to seek help in some way, So I recall there was this one night, I was again alone in my room about to cut myself. I think I was at the point of desperation. I was so low, like every day I'm just thinking about harming myself, committing suicide and things like that. But yet internally there was that small hope of wanting to seek help and not getting much of the help from my friends. So that night as I was about to cut myself again, I recalled, this Jesus that my friends have been telling me about, because I attend a school where I was surrounded by Christian friends. We have morning prayer. They often tell me about Jesus and so on, even though I wasn't a Christian, I wasn't a believer back then. But, in my desperation, perhaps wanting to find that little hope, and I had nothing else to try. Like there were no options, there were no cards on the table. I suddenly recalled this Jesus, and as I was about to cut myself, I really wanted help. So, growing up in a traditional Chinese family, God always stay in heaven. I watched Journey to the West and so on. So I didn't know how to pray to Jesus, but I just knelt down beside the window, faced the sky and say, Jesus, if you are real, come and save me out of this because I don't want to live this way. It was that there was that firm conviction of wanting to die if I'm going to go to jail, but yet there was that tiny glimmer of, if there's a way out of this, I want to cling on to it, and that's what I did. And it may not sound the most rational, how did I find that strength within me to be so desperate to pray to Jesus for help? But I just found that strength internally within me, and there was nothing magical that happened. Not like I pray and then the situation was resolved. It was still a process after that. But what changed was that I found that hope internally within me. Like there was less and less of that desire of wanting to harm myself, wanting to commit suicide. But slowly, I was gradually finding more and more traction that perhaps there is a reason to continue living. So after that night, it was a good 2 months after that, before the police came back and said that, there was, the investigations are done, there's nothing, I'm not going to have a blacklist, nothing to my name at all. And and even though in that situation, and I think both of you shared and you can relate as well, that it's really that fear and that uncertainty about the future. Just because that one particular situation was resolved didn't mean that, okay, I'm like happy now, I no longer deal with it, because there's always that fear that what if there's another one. So then it was a gradual process where there was, that I still internally had that desire to harm myself, to commit suicide, but yet internally I also had that hope that maybe there's something worth living for, there's hope in my life. And it was that process gradually, that things did get better. But the story didn't quite end there, because like kind of a lot more recently in 2019 I had a second more minor episode where I fell into depression as well. But it was in that episode that thoughts about being on the edge of a cliff resurfaced. Like mentally, I was undergoing a lot of stress back then. There was a lot of life transitions. I was finishing up my PhD. My wife was going to give birth soon. I was going to start on a new job and things like that. So there were a lot of triggers and stresses. But that really pushed me mentally to the edge of a cliff. Like I remember I was in my own study room just working on my stuff, trying to finish up some work. But, I was working, and then suddenly my mind went to, okay, it feels like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff ready to jump. So again, there was that defaulting to, perhaps there is an easier way out of this, which is to jump and things will be resolved, which of course was a lie and a deception. So in that moment, it was quite bad. I had those thoughts, but yet it was so crippling. And again, I didn't find the strength to share with anyone, not even my wife. I was married then. My wife asked me how I was doing. I just said I was okay, and I continued life, which on hindsight was quite scary. I mean, having someone live with you in the same house 24/7, and you're just telling her you're okay when
everything.
Yeah, exactly. And when I'm not okay, but I'm just saying I'm okay. Yeah.
Did that scare you, that those were the thoughts that surfaced in your head, those options?
It definitely was. I think this second episode was a lot more about being caught off guard. Perhaps, myself thinking that having been through it once and not having the same thoughts kind of for like 10, 11 years, okay, I'm out of this, I'm safe, I have this, like, I don't know, I have Jesus now, I have this holy circle, nothing can attack me. But it was further from the truth, like, because there are always stresses and triggers in life, and that really did catch me off guard. And it was scary because it was on hindsight, like after everything was resolved, then I realized actually it was really scary that I didn't even tell my wife about it, and that was scary because, I don't know, if your spouse doesn't even know about it, who knows?
Yeah, and she sees you every moment.
Exactly, and I could have just spiraled down
Yeah.
even further without anyone knowing. Yeah.
No, but I think that actually is more common than we think. Like, we see on the news, right, that there are, for example, male suicide rates that are quite high. And I know people personally who have lost friends to suicide, and it came as a huge shock to them because this friend did not even look like he was depressed. So he would be out partying with them, having a lot of fun. He's the joker of the group, and then suddenly out of nowhere something like that happens. So I think generally it catches the people off around them really, really off guard. And I think there's a reason for why guys don't talk about it, like for you at least, like why did you not want to share about it?
I guess so there are two thoughts. One was, in that particular situation, I felt like even if I share to someone else, they can't help. Like, okay, even if I tell my wife, I tell my friends in church, I tell this person, what can they help? Like, the most I can get is, I'll be praying with you, praying for you. And at that point, I was at that point where, they are not going to provide any practical help anyway, so why tell them about it? So there was that sense of pride within me, and perhaps linked to it is also, growing up, I don't know about Ash, but growing up, I watched all the, martial arts shows, like you are in, Shaolin and all that, like, guys don't kneel down, it's a men thing to bleed and like not feel pain and things like that. So perhaps, there was that idea of being vulnerable is seen as being weak, and that was something that I grappled with because I didn't want to be seen as weak. Yeah.
Wow.
Did you guys seek professional help in that journey?
For me, I did, because the panic attack was like the final straw for me already, because I've been anxious for like 2 years. I just felt like enough is enough. I decided like, okay, it's time. I need to go and get professional help already. I cannot live like this anymore. And then it was really good. Like, I feel like there was this freedom in just sharing this whole entire journey with someone who has zero bias against you, and they're just there to give you professional help. And then at the end of it, you do what you want with the information they give you. But it was just so liberating, just like to have someone who understands fear fully, to kind of explain to you why you feel a certain way and why your mind feels a certain way as well.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what are some of these like handles that she gave you?
Yeah, so I remember one that's really clear and is still helping me to this day. So she basically changed my whole perspective onto why I was so scared of my parents, or even for myself, like having small little issues, things like that. She basically said that actually you don't really fear cancer in your family members or your loved ones. You actually fear more of seeing them suffer, because that them suffering makes you feel very helpless. It doesn't give you hope. To see someone who took care of you now in pain, and you don't really know what to do, and they're just there suffering, like, you just feel helpless, and that's why you are worried. So that was a really good point to take note whenever these things happen again. The second point is that she personified the anxiety into something that's a bit more relatable. So what I mean by that is that she told me that, okay, imagine that anxiety is a person, and this person is like knocking on your door. And then when we don't understand why this fear is happening, we very quickly let it in. Like, oh, it's a worrying situation. I have the right to be scared. I have the right to be fearful about this. And so we immediately let it in, and it just overwhelms us. But what you should do that will help in kind of like easing this feeling of anxiety is that, yes, the anxiety is still there knocking at your door, but you basically tell and say like, okay, I see you there. I acknowledge that you're outside the door right now, but I'll handle you later on.
Can ah?
Yeah?
As in really can?
It's-
Can like leave it at the door?
I mean, for guys, we compartmentalize things very easily, so we can kind of do our own thing first before the emotions get to us. But what she meant by leaving it at the door is that, yes, you acknowledge that it exists and that you know it's like there, but you just don't give it the control over your life.
Like you don't let it take
You don't
over.
let it in. Yeah, you don't let it in. You have the control to let it in, and you decide
Yeah.
whether you want to let it in or not.
Wait, then what does it mean to handle it later? Because later when you go and open the door, right, doesn't it just like come in also?
But now you have like the control. You know when it's going to come in, and then you say like, you sit down and you process this information like properly. Like, for example, let's say a family member is going through a health crisis again, and then the immediate thought for me previously was like, oh no, something's wrong, and you start to panic and everything. But now what it looks like for me is that, okay, family's going through something, let's wait for the results to come out. Like, I still feel a bit anxious, but it's not the full blast of it. It's like, okay, let's wait it out for a little while, let's not overthink it, and let's just wait for the results to come out before it actually happens. And that has really helped in the way that I kind of manage giving anxiety control over my life.
Yeah, this is super interesting to me because I think my impression of anxiety has always been that it just takes over. Like you have no, in some sense, control or choice over it, right? And the honest question on my mind now is that I'm actually very impressed that you can do this. I think, I don't know, I also do wonder, like, does it take some form of mental fortitude and strength to be able to say, you stay there first, then later I come and deal with you. Then for our listeners who maybe feel like they don't have that kind of mental strength, right? Is there a way to train that mental strength? I don't know whether you have some insight into that.
Maybe we change the term mental health to mental fitness for a while. Like, what does what does having mental fitness look like? For guys, we gym. It takes a bit of training to kind of deal with it. And I guess in the same way, for those who feel like you may not have that mental fortitude to kind of battle this, you will get defeated in the first few rounds, but you need to train your mind to kind of go towards this approach. And when you keep doing that, then you're like, oh, okay, maybe there's like I'm equal now with this. And
It's like arm wrestling lah.
yeah, it's arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like my opponent is stronger now, but if I keep training and keep doing it, sooner or later I can fight it off.
At least hold it there.
Hold it
Yeah.
there for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think firstly you will stumble and you will fall in the first few rounds. I mean, I did. Like with like the first 2 years were just like, oh, I'll just worry, but now it's like, okay, if the thing happens again, I know what to do. I have a battle strategy to approach this. And what my therapist has given to me is that she actually didn't give me the solution. When I come out of therapy and like, wow, this like the world feels 10 times brighter than it used to be. I can hear the music and I can just like dance in the grass field. But I think what she gave me was weapons, like upgraded weapons arsenal. To like say like, if anxiety comes, you use this. You have this now. Now you can go and fight it. Yeah. And maybe, down the road when life gets a bit tougher, the anxiety or the situation will be tougher. Like for example, having kids, where your parents are getting older and it's time's almost up and things like that. The situation will get tougher and the anxiety will grow as well. Yeah. But the weapons and everything you will keep getting.
And you get better at using it.
You get better at using it.
Yeah.
So.
So the first few years, it's not like you are just laying there like in a defeated tone, like, okay, come whack me, kind of, but I like the term about fitness and training, but because your first few years, perhaps where you're stumbling and feeling defeated, it's actually those foundational years where you learn awareness as well. What are the things that trigger you, why you feel what you feel, what exactly is it that you are feeling. And I would think for you, maybe that after that 2 years when you sought professional help, you were able already to somewhat clearly articulate, what you were going through, what you were feeling, and that helped you in building your mental fitness.
Yeah, so she really explained to me in detail why I felt this way, and that gave me like what you said, the awareness. Like before this, like I don't know what's going on. Like it's just so cloudy, it's just so confusing. But now at least there's a clarity to it. I feel like after this session, like the fog kind of got further. It's still there, the uncertainty is still there, but the fog just got further. In gamer terms, like your render distance become like further. It's like
okay.
It's all there in front of you, but there's a certain boundary that you cannot see yet. And that's for you to worry for another time. Yeah.
Okay, I find this super intriguing, especially the idea of like, I think growing your mental fitness. Like I want to bring it to concrete terms so that I think for our listeners, they have something that they can take away. What are some concrete things they can do to grow their mental fitness?
Personally, for myself, I think talking to friends helped a lot in kind of processing this information, because they kind of give you like a third person point of view with the whole thing. And
it's like getting a spotter at the gym.
Yeah.
You get somebody there.
Yeah.
Wow,
like
see? I become a gym bro.
In case your wage drop or whatever,
Yeah.
But yeah, you get a second opinion, you get a third opinion, because perhaps these friends of yours may have gone through similar things, and they're able to advise you, they're able to help you, not so much as a professional help, but as a friend who's willing to like love you in that moment, support you, and to just sit with you in the mud while the bullets are flying above you, and just sit down and listen to you and just process this information with them. For some, maybe journaling could help. If you want to cry, you can cry.
Yeah. And I feel like it's okay that different people process it differently. So I'm very not like you. I cannot talk until I have written it down. Because I need to be able to understand it myself first, or at least identify it myself, be able to describe it before I'm even able to tell you. If not, I mean, I'll legit just cry. And I'm like, bye-bye. I want to go home. I don't know what else to say. So, and I feel like for different people, it's okay to have different methods of doing it. And it's fine to experiment.
Yeah.
It's okay if at the start, you journal, right? Then you realize that, wow, this is not helping. This is actually making me even more stressed.
Yeah.
Then you try other ways lah until you land on something that actually helps you to get that clarity to at least take the next step. You know, it doesn't need to be something that helps you solve the problem, but at least help you take the next step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was very good for me as well. Like the journaling portion. I'm not the kind to write essays, you know, but
I am.
but I write it in point forms, and I think what that helped, right, was that it gave clarity to what I was feeling. You know, I think most guys can relate. Like when you ask us how we feel, we always say we feel okay, you know, things are okay and things like that. But just going through that, even in point form, right? Like when I'm going through, like say a depressive episode, I write down, I feel this thing about this thing, one bullet point, and then I feel this thing about this thing, and then eventually, you know, I realized there was, okay, I feel fearful, I feel sad, I feel this is this. So there may be a long list of negative emotions, but and that may seem depressing, but what that helped me to achieve was that it gave clarity. Because if it was all left in my head, it's like this intangible me's like floating around me, like I feel this, I feel that, I kind of feel this, feel that, but I don't know what I'm feeling. But when I write it down, it's there, black and white. This is what I'm feeling, and that gave me clarity.
Yeah, you just reminded me that I think that actually was what kind of helped me in the most recent one, the one that I shared, right, in 2019. Because I think when I wasn't able to identify what exactly it was that was making me feel low, to me it just felt like it's like a ball of yarn, right? That's just all very tangled. And I don't know where to start picking, so I don't know how to untangle it at all. But when I was able to, I think, qualify it as like, I feel, okay, one particular thing I remember I felt a lot that made me feel super, super bad about myself, right, is that I feel a bit broken beyond repair. I really feel like just intrinsically there is something wrong with me such that I just can't help but end up feeling this way. And I remember crying about it to my fiancé back then, because we weren't married, right? And then I was just telling him even things like, you sure you want? like I feel like there's something inside me that is a bit like off, you know, and like a bit broken, and I don't really know how to fix myself. I don't really know whether I will ever be fully okay. Maybe I might be okay for a while, but I have no idea when it will come back, you know. So you sure you still want? Yeah, and I think just being able to articulate it, even though it made me feel very bad, because I'm just like broken then, don't know how to fix, right? But I think it helped me to identify what was causing the actual lowness, and because of that, then I could spend time thinking about this in particular, rather than just the fact that I just feel low. Yeah, so I think eventually then, when I sat on that thought a little bit more, the idea that I'm maybe broken, I think then actually I came to a place where I realized that a large part of why I was unable to maybe even share and verbalize that I'm not okay is because I somehow feel the need to always be okay. And I feel the need to always be put together, to always be strong. So when I actually come to a place where I am not put together, where I am weak, I see that as unideal. Yeah, to the point that I don't even want to accept that about myself. I just kind of want to hurry up, get it over and done with, so I can go back to being normal. But what about this is abnormal? You know, maybe brokenness is normal to some degree. Of course, there is room to seek help and get better and heal, right? But maybe brokenness is normal lah in our life. It is normal to feel sad. It is normal to not be perfect. It is normal to be weak, and we just deal with it as it comes. So I think that was actually quite a big paradigm shift for me in helping me to accept where I was, so that now I can begin to put in the work to deal with what was causing that. Yeah. Do you seek professional help at any point?
No, I didn't. I guess the reason is because of the stigma that comes with it. I shared earlier that, you know, in that one day where things progress very fast, I had to see the school counselor. Even seeing that school counselor was internally a struggle, because I grew up with the thought that, wow, see, school counselor is like, I don't know, man, something is wrong with you, and things like that. So those were very real struggles. Like I didn't want to, but I didn't want people to know that I was seeing a counselor, seeing a psychologist. I didn't know whether it will leave a mark on my, I don't know, academic records. Since I go uni, go to work, and then it's always there. I've sought a counselor, sought a psychologist. So because of all these fears, actually I didn't seek any professional help. Yeah. And for you, you also mentioned that, you didn't seek. Yeah.
I did consider it actually in recent years because like I think with like as I processed a little bit more as to what happened in 2019 that could cause me to like kind of drop into that again, right? I considered that there were some things that I feel I needed to heal from. So I did think to myself like, okay, I think this is beyond my ability to rationally think through it already lah. So should I go and maybe see a professional so that they can just help me to and untangle it a little bit? But my short answer is that I was lazy. I think, okay, it's a few things. I think I was lazy to go and find a suitable counselor. I was lazy to sign up for counseling, lazy to carve out time from my already very busy life to go and see a counselor, lazy to have to verbalize my entire thought process, struggle, cry about it, feel tired after crying, and then have to think, then now what? So all these things, right? Plus, I don't have to spend money. So I just felt like, okay, maybe I will try to sit on it a little while more, try and think through it a little while more, try and see whether it just goes away on its own. And the context is, right, I'm the kind of person that even when I fall physically sick, right, I do not go and see the doctor until it's like the third day. I was like, okay, sitting on it is not resolving it. I still have a sore throat. Maybe it's finally time to go eat some antibiotics, So I'm that kind of person lah. So I think when it comes to my mental health or mental fitness, I also tend to think that way. Maybe there's a part of me that also feels like I haven't really hit rock bottom, So maybe when I hit rock bottom, then I will really go and find some help. But as of where I am now, it seems manageable and it seems okay. But I have to say that I am not closed off to it lah. I know that in the years ahead, maybe if let's say it really, really happens again, it will always still be an option to me. I just really need to get over myself lah, and like my laziness to go and do something about it.
Then I'm curious, right? Because you say that things are kind of like manageable right now and you didn't seek help, right? And actually for Ash as well, then how do you, regardless whether you seek professional help, how do you actually sustain your mental health, or build your keep building your mental fitness?
I mean, for me, I think a large part of it was processing what happened in 2019. So when I fell into it again, it was quite similar to what you said about your PhD experience, right? Because throughout my uni years, I never really had an episode. There were days where I felt lower, but I knew how to manage myself back then. So I knew that, okay, it gets bad when I'm isolated, when I'm stressed. I can't do anything about the stress because assignments are just coming. I just have to submit it, right? But I can do something about the isolation. So I would surround myself with friends. I would let them know actually that, this season I'm a bit stressed. I'm a bit on edge, easily triggered. So I think that was how I dealt with it in uni. And then over time, I actually thought that I was done. Yeah, so when it started coming back in 2019, right, I think for the first part of it, I was just so pissed off. I was like, what the heck? Like, I thought I was done with this. How come it came back? And it's like, it came back with a vengeance, Like, last time I still can wake up, go school, smile, laugh. Now I just wake up, look at the ceiling and like don't want to do anything. So I think I was very upset that it came back because I thought that I was done with this struggle. But I think it took me a while to realize that I really needed to process all the things that happened to me that could cause me to fall back into it, because I seemed to have a system that worked in uni, to kind of deal with it. So as I spent some time like thinking about it, I realized that one big trigger for me in 2019 was the relational stress, as well as my whole understanding of what pressing on and having hope in this whole thing meant. I think previously, because it just kind of magically went away on its own, I think when I had seasons where I felt a bit low, hope to me meant that these feelings would disappear. Like that was what I felt hopeful about, right? So when in 2019 I was in that whole season, and then day after day I wake up and I still feel these feelings, I still look at the ceiling and like it doesn't seem to have changed, right? I think then that hope started to diminish every single day, and I realized that that kind of hope is very baseless and it's very fleeting, because it's not solid at all. There is no certainty at all in that kind of hope. And so I was forced to kind of maybe reconsider like what exactly do I find hope in? You know, if it is in the light at the end of the tunnel, then that's a very hopeless endeavor because I don't really know where that light is. It doesn't seem to be near at all. But somewhere along the journey, I think I kind of had a bit of a paradigm shift that I don't think hope is really found in the light at the end of the tunnel, but in who is with me on this journey. I think that for me meant the people who loved me and journeyed with me, but more importantly, God who was with me. I think in that whole period of time when I felt like there were so many things that I was feeling that I couldn't even really understand myself. And if I couldn't understand it, I couldn't express it and verbalize it to the people around me such that they could understand, right? I think that was a period of time where I really felt like really only God understands, and even more than I can, you know? So things that I don't even need to verbalize, I think God knows, and God knows what I'm going through. And that started to become my source of comfort and hope. That every day when I wake up, even if the feelings haven't really gone away, I find hope in the fact that, okay, I'm not alone. God is with me, and I want to trust that I'm in good hands. And so as I had that paradigm shift, I think it also gave me the courage to unpack a little bit more of the things that happened to me, realized that a large part of it was that relational stress. So I actually made the decision to put some distance between myself and some of these relationships that were causing me a lot of stress. So surprisingly, right, when we went into COVID, I know COVID, like 2020, was a very difficult year for a lot of people mentally and all, but I felt like 2019 was so bad that nothing else can be worse than that. So 2020 to me was fantastic. I'm so sorry for people who had a terrible 2020, right? But it was so healing for me. I was so happy during circuit breaker. I was so happy to
Freedom!
be stuck. Yeah, I really feel like just being in my room. Back then I was married already, so it helped that my husband was there with me. So just being able to have some space from these triggers to, I guess, focus a bit more on my own mental fitness and recovering and making sense of the things that happened to me actually was a very healing journey. And I came out of circuit breaker and COVID, I was like, yes, I can do life again, you know? So I think that whole period of time was actually quite helpful for my healing. So I think the whole idea of mental fitness, to me at least, what I have come to realize is taking stock of the things that happen to you. I live a life that I would think is quite fast-paced. And it's quite easy for me to move from project to project and agenda to agenda and just kind of clear things, meet people, and then go to sleep, right? But I have found that it's actually very, very important for me to take stock of my life because I'm also somebody that thinks a lot. My mind is rarely empty, for better or for worse, right? So when my mind is filled with thoughts, but I do not take time to consolidate and process it, right? I think sometimes those thoughts leave emotions in me that I'm not even very aware of until a while later when I realize that, actually, how come I start to feel quite heavy, but I can't really trace it anymore because it's been there for a while. So it helps me to actually regularly take stock. And what I mean by regularly is actually daily. Every single day when I take the MRT home, right? Actually, that to me is my consolidation time. I will take time to think about what happened in my day, how did I feel about it, do I have the space to process this emotion now, and if not, then it's okay, let me put it aside. Over the weekend or on my day off, when I have some brain space to think about it, then I will pull it out to think about it, process it. If I need to have a conversation with somebody about it, I will. But that's how I kind of, in a sense, train myself to not have too much of an accumulation of emotions and thoughts that go unchecked.
You kind of declutter your mind.
And I find that for me, I need to do it regularly because the clutter builds up quite quickly.
Yeah.
Is that the same for you, Ash? I mean, what was your journey? Is it also that same hope?
So I think if we go back to 2021, up to the point of 2023, I've been praying about this for a very, very long time, 2 years. I remember every time these situations kind of happen, I will kind of turn to God, like most of us here, when we just say God, can you help me through this? Can you help me to see the light at the end of the tunnel or release me from this? Maybe a breakthrough in anxiety means God completely takes away my anxiety. Maybe a freedom in all this means God just takes away the suffering, But actually, it's not like that. The truth is that it's not like that. I was at work, and then there was a guy who came in to pitch one of his projects to us. And what he said to me really caught me off guard. So when it came to my turn, he just said, as I was praying for you, the Lord gave me an impression that you are a thinker and you have a lot of thoughts in your head, and that you've allowed these thoughts to consume your peace, and it has really just like crumbled you, you know. But it says in His word in Isaiah 26 verse 3 that He keeps in perfect peace those whose minds are fixed on you. Trust in the Lord forever, for He is an everlasting rock. And so as you allow God to speak to you as you sleep, as you rest, as you continue to dream, He will give you the rest you need as long as you fix your mind on Him. And then He ended. And that's when I was like I froze for a minute, and He looked at me and was like, did I get it correct? Then I said, yeah, you did. It felt as though like God suddenly held me in His hands and just told me like, I've heard every prayer, I've heard every cry you ever gave, I've heard every sigh, I've collected your tears in this bottle, and I've seen all these things that happen, and I've heard you. It was just this like, wow, it's very, to know that these 2 years of prayers were answered through a guy that I didn't, like we all don't know, was a complete stranger. That was the last, like, you know, the final chop in that story. And so that gave me a lot of hope, in that I know that in those situations where it feels like there's no hope, that when we pray and that God feels silent, that our prayers are not answered, I know that the silence has a reason, the silence has a purpose, and that if God had answered those prayers immediately when I asked them, this whole thing would just seem like, oh, okay, it's just another answered prayer, that's it. But the fact that this was answered through a random stranger just solidified more that the Lord heard. Yeah, and this gives me a lot of hope today, because I can, you know, just pray about anything. If I feel tired, if I feel like something's wrong in the family, I can just like give it to Him. And I say like, God, I feel really tired about this. Even though it may not be answered at that moment, but I know He hears, and that He will answer at the right time. I think what these experiences helped me through my friends, my family, therapists, and this experience with God, right? It really helped me to kind of create a new network, a new path in my brain, in that originally it was like every time something bad happens, it just goes straight to cancer, this bad situation, you know. But now, because of all this, there's it sort of formed a new way, in that, hey, actually things are better than it seems to be, and that I shouldn't keep taking this like broken path. There's a new path that's laid out for me now, and this is where my mind should go, you know, like the Lord hears, your friends and families are there for you, and use these weapons that your therapist has given you to fight this. It really helped in a way whereby my thoughts start to become healthier. It's a little bit more positive, although sometimes, yes, I know that after this whole experience, stress, anxiety, and bad circumstances will happen again. It's no doubt that it will happen again. But at least now, I have all these reinforcements and kind of like armor to protect me, and also weapons to fight it. These are not promises that it will not happen again, but these are promises that it will get better.
Wow. Yeah, I personally learned quite a lot from our session today. I mean, because we have never been to therapy, so you are our stand-in therapist today. But I sincerely did learn a lot. I think even that whole reframing it to mental fitness and seeing it as a journey that we all can kind of take the next step in and get stronger at, right? I think was a very refreshing perspective for me. And just to shout out to our listeners, I think we are in no way licensed therapists, even though Ashley has a lot of handles, right? Like, we are also still very much on this journey, and I think we acknowledge that everybody's journey with mental health, mental fitness, mental wellness can be quite different. But along the way, what we are doing here today is simply just having an open conversation and also sharing some things that we have come to realize helped us and has worked for us. So we also hope that you managed to take away something from today's episode. We hope that it helped you to at least take the next step, or decide to take the next step in your journey, and yeah, I think this really is what NGL is about, offering a space for open conversations for your everyday person to just come and share what we're going through in life. So we hope you really, really enjoyed this episode, and we hope that it offered you some form of companionship. If you know somebody who might identify with this episode and the things we talked about, please feel free to send this to them. You can find more of our episodes on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at ngl.people, and you can join our Telegram channel where we have conversations in between episodes. So thank you so much, Zheng Kai and Ashley, for joining
Thank
us.
you.
I really
No
learned a lot,
problem.
and I enjoyed our conversation so much.
Yeah.
And to everybody else, we will see you in our next episode. Bye!